We thought the bunker kept a monster out. It was built to keep one in, and we opened it. My name is Evan Cole, and if my voice sounds tired, it's because some nights don't end. They just learn to walk beside you. I'm going to tell you about the house under Black Hollow Ridge, the bunker beneath it, and the thing that ran between the trees like the night had grown a spine. There were 4 of us. Evan, Mason, Tyler, and Grant, dorm mates, freshmen, idiots by hobby. We loved the kind of mystery you can tempt with flashlights and snacks, closed tunnels, dead links, the usual campus bravado. Then we read about 3 bodies found near the reserve. Cause of death animal with no animal named. Locals said a wolf. The internet said something else. Haruma mentioned an abandoned estate, once used by a government subcontractor. The rumor said containment. So we packed tents and pried and went where the map thins out. If you listen to anything I say, listen to this. Bring fire that knows your name. And never trust a moon that rises clean. We left campus under a sky the color of ordinary. By late afternoon we were deep in pines, driving a county road that narrowed into the idea of one. A sign warned no camping beyond mile 9 and another. Older sign leaned into the ditch. Calder Estate, private. That word made us smile in the way people smile right before they prove how fragile they are. We parked near a rusted gate and hiked. Mason led with the compass. Tyler had a hand-me-down DSLR and nerves like glass. Grant carried a little can of camp fuel and a bag of marshmallows, because gallows humor needs props. I had rope, a beat-up first aid kit, and the kind of optimism you can only buy once. The trail blurred. Fog didn't roll in. It accumulated, stringing itself between trunks like silk that wanted to remember how to be rain. We kept finding gravel where there shouldn't be any, like we were walking along the fossil of a driveway. Left, Mason said. Downhill toward water. We went left and found a house, not a cabin, an old stone mansion, 3 stories with a roofline like a broken crown. Vines explored the walls. The veranda sagged politely. Iron lions flanked the steps, their mouths stained darker than weather could explain. The front door stood open just enough to feel rude. We shouldn't, Tyler said. We won't stay, Grant promised. Just pictures. Ghost content. Then we camp somewhere the trees don't have opinions. We stepped inside. The foyer smelled like damp books and metal that learned to be tired. A chandelier hung low, bearded with web. Down the main hall we found a dining room with a steel crate stamped with stenciled warnings. Auxiliary containment. Forward sight B14. The latch wasn't locked. It was exhausted. Inside were goggles, face shields, and a neat row of silver tags reading Calder Systems Contractor, Level 2. Tyler filmed while Mason read. Auxiliary containment, he said. For what? Another crate waited against the wall. Emergency depot. Arms. The foam inside had outlines for things that were gone and a few things that weren't. A sawed-off pump shotgun with a stiff action, 2 boxes of shells, a bundle of flares, 3 jugs of kerosene, and a dozen slim glass ampules labeled pyro-gel apply. Ignite, retreat, party favors, Grant said, checking the shotgun with hands steadier than his jokes. If this is a set, it's a good one. At the back of the kitchen, a door opened to stairs that breathed cold. We went down, because curiosity has poor survival odds. The bunker didn't pretend. Concrete corridors, blast doors, strip lights that woke sullenly as we moved. Red lines stenciled on the floor pointed toward observation, holding, and armorer. We found a security room with a tape player and a stack of dossiers. The top folder read, Werewolf, field dossier, lycanthropic entity. On the first page, a photograph, a long-muzzled silhouette in profile, ears back, fur along shoulders like raised hackles, proportions too tall for any wolf and wrong for a man. Under it, block letters, behavior, territorial. Stalking pattern escalates with lunar illumination. Strengths, endurance, speed, night adaptation, olfactory tracking. Weaknesses, fire. Aversion to sustained flame smoke. Notes, do not assume silver efficacy. Prioritize ignition barriers and boiler line incinerators. Grant raised his eyebrows. So they built a house on top of a flamethrower? Or a prison, Mason said quietly. We pressed on to Holding. The blast door had been wedged with a metal rack, as if someone had wanted it to stay open, or couldn't bear to close it again. The room beyond was cathedral high, with ceiling cranes and a circular cell scored with claw marks, like the alphabet of a patient animal. Around the perimeter, floor drains and the kind of scarring you only get when heat argues with walls, and there were bodies. I won't crawl into detail for you. The uniforms told their own quiet stories. Helmets caved in, plates twisted. A few shapes looked like the remains of meals someone didn't finish. Insects worked with ordinary industry. The air had that iron smell that turns your tongue into a memory you don't want. Tyler gagged and turned his lens away. Mason crouched by a soldier whose fist still clutched a folder. He eased it free and read aloud. Calder Lycan Protocol Revision 7. Containment perimeter must be fire segmented. Barrier fuel, kerosene, pyro-gel. Lure is ineffective post-transformation. Do not attempt to outrun. Obstruct with flame. Keep a clear path to daylight. Moonrise increases aggression and range. If the boiler is functional, initiate purge cycle within Holding. We found a control panel, dead but not cold. A line diagram of pipes labeled Purge AB. In the corner, a wheeled tool chest, and in the bottom drawer, a heavy zipper with a navy crest, still smelling of someone else's night. Let's not push buttons we can't unpush, I said. Grant nodded toward the floor where prints had dried. Not boots. Paws. But longer. More articulated. Something that had learned a new way to walk and liked it. The prints came in and then smudged into everywhere. We leave, Tyler said. We go now? Copy, Mason said. Take the shotgun, the flares, 2 jugs of kerosene, and 3 of those glass things. If this is a hoax, it's elaborate. If it isn't, we don't want to audition. We retraced our steps, climbed into the kitchen, and shouldered into the fading day. Night wasn't here yet, but it had sent a letter of intent. We had a plan. Follow the gravel to the main drive, hit the service road, find the gate and the county line like good boys with apologies. We made it 50 yards before the forest unrolled a moon through the clouds, like a coin you wish you hadn't found. The first sound wasn't a howl. That would have been a favor. It was the quiet stopping. Birds throttled their sentences. Wind chose not to be social. The pines adjusted their shoulders to make room for something tall. Don't look for it, Mason said. Look for places a big thing would prefer. Open lanes, game trails. Grant racked the shotgun and breathed out in a slow ribbon. Tyler checked the sky as if to negotiate with it. We reached the curve where the drive met the half-paved road. That's where we saw it. Not a full sighting, just pieces stitched together by dread. A back like a bent beam, fur catching the moon's spill, ears pricked, and limbs too long to be comfortable on a human frame. It moved through the understory without making the noises things are supposed to make. When it changed direction, the night seemed to agree with it in advance. Back to the house, Mason said immediately. We need flame and corners. We ran for the veranda, boots thudding, kerosene sloshing. The front doors yawned as if they had thoughts about us. We blew past the foyer and into the kitchen, scattering chairs. Grant dumped a line of kerosene across the tiles, and I struck the Zippo. Flame woke the room with a soft animal roar. Smoke curled and learned the ceiling's map. The thing hit the veranda with a heavy thud that traveled through the floor. It did not barge in. It considered the door like it could smell decisions. The kitchen lit our faces the way confession lights altar boys. The house made noises like old memory. Pops in the walls would learning caution. The thing paced along the exterior, claws scraping once on stone to check the edge. Then the pacing stopped. A window further down the hall ticked like a jar lid settling. "It's testing entry," Mason said. "It's not stupid," Tyler whispered. "What if it used to be, a person?" "Then it knows doors," Grant said. "And we're the slow ones." He was right. A pane shattered in the parlor, and the night poured in with fur. We didn't see its face, only a mouth in profile, the flash of wet teeth and shoulders that moved like a bridge flexing. The thing took one lunging step onto the parlor rug and jerked back when the smoke rolled at it. "Not fear, distaste stares," Mason said. "Up. We force it to choose angles." We sprinted to the landing, dragging 2 jugs of kerosene like frightened caterers. The moon found us through the tall window and made us honest. The thing crossed the foyer with a low gate that seemed to protect the parts that wanted protecting. It was not just strength. It was design. Grant handed me the shotgun and tore open an ampule of pyro-gel. The syrup glistened like varnish. He slathered it across the top step and down the rail. Tyler pulled a flare and snapped it. Red opened in his fist like an accusation. He lobbed it at the gel and the staircase developed a thick, angry fire. The werewolf didn't scream. It paused, head tilted, nostrils flaring, the way a wild dog does when a fence has ideas above its station. Then it moved along the hall, fast, and we understood. The stairs weren't the only way up, back corridor, Mason said. "It'll take the servants' steps." We ran to cut it off and met it at the landing. Too close. Its shoulders nearly level with my chest when it stood tall, its eyes catching light in a way that didn't look like reflection so much as a decision. Its breath smelled like iron and cold sap. I raised the shotgun and squeezed. The shot punched it sideways into the wall. Plaster burst in a dusty bloom. The thing's weight came back into its frame like decision made flesh, and I heard the low rumble of a creature adding me to a list. "More fire," Mason shouted. Grant dumped a second slick of gel along the corridor, and Tyler tossed another flare. Flame flowered between us. The werewolf skidded to the edge of the heat and took a sideways step that said it had learned this room and 3 like it before we were born. It withdrew without panic. We held that line until our lungs understood smoke the way sailors understand waves. When the gel burned low, Mason made the call: basement. If we can start the purge, we could boil it out. We crashed down the kitchen stairs into the bunker while the house listened for us. Back in holding, the panel that was dead before now hummed like a fridge finding courage. Mason traced the diagram with a finger. Purge A routes from the boiler through the ring drains around the cell into overhead sprayers. Purge B is line incinerators. We only need A. Grant yanked a wheel valve and it complained into motion. I fed the boiler what it wanted, kerosene and a prayer. Tyler watched the tunnel entrance with the shotgun's barrel an inch low, his hands trembling steadily. The kind of fear that remembers its job. The boiler coughed, then settled into a low throb. The purge gauge climbed, the patient meter of a plan with too many steps. Above us, something heavy crossed the floor with a 4-count rhythm that made me think of running on all fours the way a person might try running in a dream. The werewolf paced the kitchen, then the hall, then back to the parlor as if mapping our air. The purge spooled. Valves clacked open. Around the circular cell, vents exhaled heat. A faint, sharp smell rose, the smell of a night that knows how to clean itself. "That's our trick," Mason said, "and we force it into holding." "On whose back?" Grant asked. "Ed's not going to follow polite signage." We made a chain of flame from the observation booth to the cell, using pyro-gel, rags, and 3 flares. Heat drew a boundary the animal couldn't shrug off. Now we needed a reason for it to cross the line. "Noise," Tyler said suddenly. "That thing hates fire, but it hates us more. If it thinks we're inside, it'll follow." He slung the camera on a hook at the top of the cell. Lens pointed inward, and hit playback on a loop of our own shouts, recorded earlier without meaning to. Our voices bounced off concrete and became bait. We fell back to the booth, hearts scoring the moment. The werewolf came through the bunker's upper hall like the night had decided to run on legs. Ed dropped into holding and checked the room with a head tilt that wasn't human and wasn't not. The flame lane made it angle toward the cell. Inside, our voices argued with each other on the loop. It made a soft, irritated chuff, the sound an apex predator makes when it's about to solve a problem. It stepped onto the ring drains. Mason slammed purge. The vents roared. Scalding heat rolled out like a weather front. Steam filled the chamber and turned the air into a white fist. The werewolf recoiled, then committed, charging around the ring to find the seam in the heat. There wasn't one. It leapt into the cell, clearing the rising spray and crashing onto smooth concrete, and hit the inner vents we hadn't seen on the diagram. A secondary ring that spat fiercer flame like a throat learning to sing. The thing lashed at air that wasn't guilty. It wasn't dying. That's not how this works. It was considering retreat. "Hold it," Mason said through his teeth. "Hold the cycle." The cycle hated us too. Heat pushed into the booth and chased our lungs toward the door. I watched through fogged glass as the werewolf made its decision. It jumped. Not at us, not away, but up, seizing the inner door's bent frame like it hated architecture. The metal screamed. The creature hauled itself through the worst of it, smoking like a bad idea that refused to learn. It hit the floor outside the cell and ran on scorched legs, low and murderous. "Run!" Grant shouted. "Upstairs now!" We fled the purge and the heat, and our good plan that had turned into a better reason to leave. The bunker spat us into the kitchen. The werewolf came the other way, silent now, all intent. Grant turned at the door, planted his feet like a lighthouse, and fired the shotgun twice into the floor between them, exploding a strip of kerosene we'd spilled earlier. A line of fire blinked into being. The thing slid to a stop on hot tile, offended by physics. It took one measured step back. "Go!" he yelled. "I've got last watch." "Don't," Mason said. "Buy a minute," Grant answered. And he did something I still see at 4 in the morning. He smiled, small and happy, like he'd finally found the hill he'd been building in his head for 19 years. We ran. Grant fought not like a hero in a poster, but like a person who understands time. The flap of his jacket, the hiss of gel waking, the low curse when the Zippo stuttered and then caught. The werewolf committed. The kitchen was suddenly the inside of a red flower folding shut. We made the veranda in a burst, and the night took us in. There is a kind of running where you learn each step after you've taken it. Mason and I did that run. Tyler had a different one, the one where you keep looking back because love is a leash. The werewolf broke through the veranda door with a sound like bad thunder. Bits of frame went past us like complaints. It wasn't as fast as it had been. The purge had cost it easy movement, but not enough. It moved with a hurt grace I will hate forever. We cut left along the drive and into the service road. The moon rode low, fat and earnest. Smoke from the house lifted in lazy sheets. We reached the dip where the road meets a culvert and followed the ditch, keeping the scrub between us and the clearer ground. The werewolf did not howl. It did not have to. Its steps learned our rhythm and began to guess. Tyler stumbled. I caught his arm. He squeezed back once, a Morse code I didn't know. "Evan," he said, breath shivering, "if it picks me, don't stop." "It won't," I lied. It picked. I knew because the air around us shifted its mind and the trees to our right tensed in the way prey does. Tyler felt it too. He turned, lifted the camera like an offering or a shield and shouted, "Over here." The werewolf changed direction like a tide. Tyler broke from the ditch and sprinted across the open lane, angling toward the maintenance shack we'd seen earlier. Mason and I kept moving, because Tyler was doing math with his life. He hit the shack door and shouldered it open. The werewolf closed the distance like a bad answer. Tyler hurled the camera at its head. The impact didn't do what you want impacts to do. It just annoyed physics. But the move bought 2 seconds, and Tyler used them to snatch the fuel can we'd left by the threshold. He sloshed it as the werewolf took the doorway. He flicked the lighter. The doorway bloomed. Through heat shimmer I saw his face, and scared, yes, but satisfied. He stepped back into the shack, and the night closed around us with a sound I can't put into letters. Mason's jaw set into something permanent. We ran in a line of 2 until the trees thinned, and the county road recognized us like a stern friend. Headlights swept distant. We flagged them with a flare. Mason cracked with his teeth like a man who had earned anger. We told the sheriff the parts ordinary law could fit around. Search teams found the house still burning in disappointed patches. They found the bunker and pretended not to see the parts that don't go in reports. They found the boiler humming itself to sleep. They found Grant's jacket fused to a spot on tile that smelled like victory and loss. They found Tyler's camera in the ditch. Memory card intact, last clip a blur of heat, and the door learning a new shape. They did not find the werewolf dart. A man from a department with no visible logo shook our hands like someone paying respects at a funeral where the casket is closed. He took the dossiers, left us a warning wrapped in politeness, and suggested we develop new hobbies. Mason and I returned to campus with a collection of habits. We carry lighters the way other people carry chapstick. We sit with our backs to walls. We scan roofs as if roofs might learn legs. Sometimes at night I look out the dorm window, and the trees are just trees. Sometimes they aren't. I don't open the glass either way. People ask for a moral. Here's what I have. If rumors say the woods are eating people, believe the rumor. If you find a house on top of a bunker, with crates of goggles and fuel jugs labeled "please," do not make content. Make distance. Fire is a language that Monster understood, so learn a few words. And if the moon rises too clean, keep your eyes on the ground and your matches dry. 4 boys went camping. 1 came back. When the moon is fat and kind and the wind moves like a dog testing a door, I hear the house shift, the boiler breathe, the low footfalls of something that does not want to live in your story, but will take it anyway. I keep a single pyro-gel ampule in my desk drawer like a relic, and sometimes I dream the flame that lived in it learns my name. If it does, I'll speak the only word I know that it fears. I'll say it with a spark, stay burning.